When we think of the Indian country, the first thing that comes to our mind is poverty and a dead economy, but this is becoming a thing of the past. Average salary already receives almost $2,000 a year. The Indian economy is revolutionizing every day, and poverty has been falling over the years. But India, once an exploited country in its history, is finally industrializing and making strides towards abundant wealth. This huge country is becoming one of the biggest economies in the world, but it wasn't always that way. So to understand how this happened and how it can become one of the biggest economies of the 21st century, subscribe to the channel to receive videos like this every day. The best of the global economy, geopolitics, and curiosities about the countries you find here. My name is Gabriel and welcome to the Swift Economy. In 1947, when India gained its independence from the British, the country ended up without financial power, and with a totally poor population. There were more than 500 million people, where about 90% were in poverty. In addition, deindustrialization hit the country hard. European decolonization left the country bewildered and without a defined direction, making the world think that that country had no more projections for the future, that is, that country was doomed to total failure. But with cheap labor and a gigantic consumer market, India began to rise again, and the Indian government made a series of economic reforms based mainly on the country's heavy industrialization and the regulation of the financial system. With these measures, the Indian government managed to make new companies enter the country not only by encouraging the connection but also because it now had a regulation of the financial system that generated more credibility for the country and the industrialization of the country. Now the country had two important factors. One of them was more industries that generated goods with greater added value, that is, they went out in the production of purely primary goods for products that were now more expensive variations of those primary goods. And the Indian population that was formerly totally ignorant in terms of technology, ended up becoming one of the most advanced nations. In 1994, economic and IT participation was less than 0.4%, but in 2019 this number has reached an incredible 8% compared to economies that were and still are highly technological, such as Japan. The Indian economy has totally revolutionized as it has focused on the development of national industry and technology, making the industry's shape and even good economic and financial freedom over the years during India's decades of development. The country that had the share of its industry in GDP at 17% in 1950 went to more than 17% in 2016, which numerically does not seem like a big growth, but if we look directly at the increase in technology in the industry, this number becomes absurd. And everything increases with the factor of the gigantic population. Throughout human history, a large population aligned with a plan of economic development only results in the steady progress of a population. But there is one more factor that exacerbates the increase in the country's growth. Currently in India, despite the country's great economic development in recent years, the government continues to spend more than it collects, which increases the country's foreign debt. In addition, rapid population growth results in a greater need for social, environmental and economic investments by the government. In addition, there is the population factor of the country. Since 800 million people, that is equivalent to 70% of the Indian population, lives in the countryside, and the productivity factor only shows that there is still a huge space for the growth of the own parents. So this is the reality that unfortunately still affects the country, and its infrastructure is still one of the problems for the country's even greater acceleration. There are some important factors in the country that help in its growth in the world market as agricultural products. The most common are rice, wheat, cotton, tea, sugarcane, seeds, spices, vegetables. Poultry, goat, sheep, buffalo and fish farming are also very common in India. The main mining product is iron ore, although coal, diamond, chromite and natural asphalt are also exploited. The industrial sector in India is increasingly diversified. The areas that are most developed are the following: steel, equipment and machinery, cement, aluminum, fertilizers, textiles, jute, biotechnology, chemicals, software and medicines. Despite the economic success of the last decades, the country still faces several challenges. On the one hand, a virtuous cycle of GDP expansion, productivity growth and added value, job creation and economic dynamism. Exports continue to be concentrated in technology-intensive service sectors. On the other hand, the sectoral structure of growth has not changed much. When it comes to labor and work, it is still largely in the rural area. This asymmetry explains that in this is largely due to modest progress in poverty reduction and social development. This structure is also one of the explanatory factors. Lower investment rates and, in turn, India's growth in, compared to China, whose dynamic engine is the manufacturing sector, most inducing capital accumulation. But India is heading towards a glorious economic and social future, and this is remarkable in virtually every sector of the country. India can already be considered a power in its region and is seen as capable of becoming one of the great world powers of the 21st century. If you liked the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to receive videos like these every day. And not to just stick with this video, I'll leave 2 more recommendations for you. One is about why China builds ghost buildings and the other is about the current situation of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Thank you so much for watching this far, a big hug and until the next video.